He was found dead in a locked hotel room. No one saw the killer. The words alone sent a chill through the air, conjuring images of dimly lit corridors, whispering carpets, and the quiet, unsettling hush that only hangs in the aftermath of a mystery. The world has always been captivated by stories that seem to defy explanation, and the locked room mystery stands as one of the most perplexing and enduring. When a person is discovered lifeless behind a door bolted from within, with no sign of forced entry, no footprints leading in or out, and not a single witness to the fatal act, the imagination is left to wander down twisting, shadowy corridors in search of answers. Throughout history, real cases have occurred that echo the plot lines of the greatest detective fiction. The tale begins, as so many do, with an ordinary day, staff bustling about, guests coming and going, the city outside humming with its usual rhythm. Yet behind one door, everything was about to change. In the heart of the city, perched high above the streets, a hotel room became a sealed chamber of secrets. The occupant, a man known to few, was found dead. The room was locked from the inside. No one had seen anyone enter or leave. The enigma had begun. One of the most famous cases to embody this scenario occurred in 1935, Kansas City. A well-dressed young man arrives at Hotel President under the name Roland T. Owen. 2 days later, he's found brutally beaten, naked, dazed, and dying in room 1046. But the door was locked from the outside. He whispered, "Nobody did this," then died. The next connection? The name on his grave, Artemis Ogletree. And the question still remains, who was Doan, and who locked him in? It was 11:03 on the morning of Friday, January 4th, 1935. The switchboard operator at the Hotel President in Kansas City noticed that the phone in room 1046 was once again off the hook. The white light on the board shined brightly. This was the third time that morning. The first time was at 7:00 a.m. that morning, and though there was a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, the bellboy Randolph knocked anyway, 3 times. There was no answer. He knocked again. A muffled masculine voice, low and gruff, said, "Come in. Turn on the lights." Randolph thought to himself that the voice didn't sound familiar, but he'd only interacted with the man in 1046 a few times. He tried to open the door, but it was locked from the inside. He waited, but nobody came to unlock it. He sighed, assuming the man was half asleep in bed, and said through the door, "Your telephone is off the hook, sir." The second time was at 8:30 a.m. that morning, an hour and a half later. The phone was still off the hook, so they sent up another bellboy, Howard, to take care of it. Howard used his master key to enter the room and found it completely dark. The shades were drawn. The light in the hallway illuminated a man laying naked on the bed with a large dark spot surrounding him. The phone and its stand had both been knocked over, so Howard picked them up, returning the receiver to its cradle. Assuming the man was drunk, he left. It was now 11:03 a.m., and the phone was off the hook for a third time. Randolph went upstairs again, and what he discovered as the door to room 1046 swung open was terrifying. He later told the Kansas City Star, "When I entered the room, this man was within 2 feet of the door on his knees and elbows, holding his head in his hands. I noticed blood on his head. I then turned the light on. I looked around and saw blood on the walls, on the bed, and in the bathroom. This frightened me, and I immediately left the room and went downstairs." When police arrived, they found the man in 1046 with a thin white cotton rope tied tightly around his neck. His hands and feet were bound with the white rope in amateurish knots, and it was stained a deep red from blood. He had been severely beaten. His skull was fractured. He had stab wounds in his chest above his heart and bruising on his neck. Glass and blood were found in the bathroom. Both of the drinking glasses had fallen and shattered in the sink. It appeared as though the man had tried to get a glass of water, but was hindered by the cords that bound him. There were no weapons in the room, so police concluded none of the injuries could have been self-inflicted. Miraculously, the man was still alive when police arrived, but he was barely hanging on. Police tried to get details from him, asking him, "Who did this to you? Who hurt you?" "Nobody," he replied. He said his injuries were from falling against the bathtub, and then the man fell unconscious. The hospital said his injuries were about 6 to 7 hours old, which meant they occurred prior to the first time Randolph knocked on his door around 7 a.m. Unfortunately, he passed away at the hospital just after midnight that evening, leaving police with a baffling mystery to unravel that still remains today. Roland T. Owen had no identification, no belongings, and bizarrely, his socks, shoes, overcoat, and hat that he'd arrived in were missing from the room. There was also no soap or towels in the bathroom. The only clues police found in the room were an unsmoked cigarette, a hairpin, a safety pin, and a necktie label, all found on the rug near the bed. They also pulled 4 fingerprints from the telephone and prints from the glass in the bathroom. They presumed the prints to be female, but never linked them to anyone. Police concluded that Roland T. Owen was not the young man's real name. There was no record of him anywhere. After failing to uncover Roland's true identity, it was decided that he would be buried in a pauper's grave for unclaimed people. Upon the announcement, the Melody McGilly Funeral Home received a phone call from an anonymous man insisting they bury Roland in Memorial Park Cemetery and offered to pay for the full burial costs. Shortly after, the money arrived rolled up in a newspaper, and 13 American Beauty roses were sent to his funeral with a note that read, "Love forever, Louise." According to one source, the caller said, "I'm doing this for my sister," to the florist. According to that same source, the unknown man who called up to pay for the funeral explained that Roland cheated on a girl, and that he, the girl, and Roland had a little meeting in 1046. Hotel staff did recall seeing a man and a woman coming out of 1046 that morning prior to discovering Roland. They seemed to be in a hurry. Finally, the man on the phone said, "Cheaters always get what's coming to them," and hung up. Mages of the dead man continued to be circulated nationwide in the hope of identifying him. One of these finally did, when a friend of Ruby Ogletree in Birmingham, Alabama, showed her an issue of The American Weekly, a Sunday newspaper supplement published by the Hearst Corporation, with an article about the case. The unidentified man looked a great deal like her son Artemis, whom the family had not seen since he left to hitchhike to California in 1934, although he had kept up correspondence with them. Ruby contacted the KCPD and was able to provide enough information about the previous pseudonymous corpse, including a description of his head scar, which she explained was the result of a childhood accident in which some hot grease had spilled there. While that question had been answered, Ruby's account raised more questions. She had received several letters purportedly from her son after he had been killed. The first, early in 1935, postmarked in Chicago, aroused her suspicions since it was typewritten, and as far as she knew, Artemis did not know how to type. It was also written in a highly colloquial style that was not consistent with his previous letters. In May 1935, another letter purportedly from Artemis said he was going to Europe. It was followed by a special delivery letter saying that his ship was sailing that day. Both were sent from New York. Police investigated nationwide: Los Angeles, New York, Memphis. They questioned a suspect named Donald Kelso, but nothing stuck. Emails, phone calls, even letters claimed to be from Artemis, some sent after his death. By 1950, authorities officially closed the case, but whispers remained. Footprints in the snow, cryptic evidence found in a deceased man's belongings in 2003. Why are there no witnesses or suspects? No weapon or motive? A case of robbery gone wrong? A jealous lover? A hired killer? Or something more sinister, like blackmail or political intrigue? Hotel President still stands, and so does the mystery of room 1046. So, who killed Artemis in room 1046? Did Don escape justice? Was Louise a lover? Or an accomplice? What do you think happened in that dark Kansas City hotel room? Share your theory below. And if you want more twisted, unsolved mysteries, subscribe to No Face Files for deep dives and shocking truths.